Opposing Gloves here, and today I am going to be doing sound design with Harmor, and we are going to be doing big room leads. I have two examples. Let me make sure I'm recording, because it is now no longer my camera used to light up blue to let me know it was recording, but now it's always blue. So, okay, here are some examples. So, first off, these are some of my favorite sounds. So, the first one is this. So that's the first example. So sort of a big chord type lead. Writing the melodies is really specific with this kind of sound design. Here's the second one. Yeah, I really like that one. I like that one a lot. I could probably turn the volume up on it and do various things, but that would be involved in mixing. And in reality, I should probably turn just everything down and then turn that up, because then I wouldn't be fooled by this ridiculousness, and I could apply EQ. But the whole idea was to do everything in Harmor, so I've done everything in Harmor, and I haven't mixed it in any way. I did a little mixing with the kick, and then I went in here, and I didn't want to make my own kick, so I just went to a Vengeance pack and grabbed a kick. So the first sound that you heard is this thing by itself, and it is a combination of this, and I'm using both side A and side B on that, and a combination of this. So this thing's got to be pretty touchy, but I eventually got it somewhere where it was transparent. And when you're doing sound design like this, you must be aware that you are going to hear it as a separate sound a great deal of the time. It's gonna bother you and you're gonna hear it. But when there'll be a point where you're like, man, if I were to come back and listen to this a couple days and forget about this, like, I wouldn't realize that was there, and it would add to the sound. Like, it's not a bad thing that you hear it. You want to hear it. You're like in this battle between wanting to be transparent and meld with the sound and wanting it to be add to the sound, though. So just so you know, when you're doing stuff like that becomes a big challenge. So this first sound, okay, so I have this going on. So I have A. Let's turn on just A. So it sounds sort of like a little bit of a tut-tut child bass. So okay, let's talk about this. So I've got my reverb on, and the reverb is on. It's normal. I've turned I think most things up. I turned the size up. It's big room, so it's got to have a big room, right? That's how that works. And I've got the filters. I moved them around to find something that I liked, and I wound up with, that. I left the pitch alone, surprisingly, and just decided to write low notes instead. The amount and width. Now this can add an organy type feel to your sound, because they just clone harmonics and put them up higher. I added the strength big time, but I took it down to a 1+1. This gives it a square wave type texture, which you can't really hear anymore with this distortion on, and with a few other things that I'm doing. But it gives it, and I'm on saw wave, but it will add sort of like square harmonics to our sound. And so I had this on cube. I went to cube, and I turned these things to the settings I liked. I took the amount way up, and I left the wet where it's at. So nothing real big there. Course barely on. The depth and spread. I keep wanting to say spread. Speed is very small, and the unison is on, except for on the unison, I'm doing a variety of things in the envelopes. So first off, I've made my own gate envelope. The reason this is here is because I was making something else, and in the process, I didn't like it, and I changed it to this, and it's pretty much the same thing as the default. So I could arguably just turn that off. Unison pitch thickness is, so this is turning the pitch variation down really fast. And I settled on this curve. This is the one I liked. The other curves they went too straight, too fast, and so they didn't sound as good. So I went with this one. Okay, I have the phaser on, barely, and it's just moving throughout the sound, causing small variations in phase. I have an EQ curve with a boost in the upper end of my spectrum, and I've got resonance with its width turned up, with the width off. You see, it makes quite a big difference, actually, that resonance. It makes a huge difference. And it's just stagnant resonance. Doesn't go anywhere. It just stays there. So that is pretty much this side of the patch. So let's go over here to part B. Part B has the same effects. It's a square wave. This one is a complete square wave. So see, I'm emphasizing the square harmonics here. I took this one up an octave, surprisingly. I took it up an octave, and I tried not to do really anything much more. I added a subharmonic. Gives it some more weight. It makes a difference when you hear it without the subharmonic. You're like, oh man, it's not a huge difference, but it is there. The compression, light, mid, high. That's pretty much that jazz. I tried to really stay away from touching anything else. Again, now this is important. This does make a difference. So with the envelope off, I'm not sure if you can hear the difference, but when I was working on it, it made a big difference. Was I turned the volume down on the square wave, and it creates a different phase relationship with the patch. So with it on, you see, it just doesn't let the part A sing through. So it's still being sustained in there, and contributing to the patch, but it is contributing more to the attack. So I get a more, I guess, natural sounding attack from this. I get a more complex spectrum. So that is that. Now let's go over here to this thing. So this is something that I decided to just synthesize. In reality, I could probably just grab a sample of white noise, which I could totally do in Harmor and still be within the bounds of my rules. But what you can do is you grab like a percussive hit of some kind. You do whatever processing you're going to do to it, and then you layer it with your sound, with your big room sound, your big room lead sound, or whatever melody you have, and then it just hits it. So it goes doon, and it's a really good way to add some punch. And you generally want it to be a higher sound. You don't want it to take up the lower spectrum, but that totally depends on the sound. So that sort of is meaningless. So anyway, let's talk about what is going on here. So first, I have got this going on. So you hear it actually gains a pitch up here. That's because the harmonizer is on, and I just turned the harmonizer on. I pitched it up an octave because it down low wasn't doing it for me. I felt like I needed some of that. I have the unison with the pitch variation all the way up, and it's on Hertz mode. This is what's basically generating my noise for me. So this is my noise generator, a very inefficient noise generator, but one nonetheless. Probably be more easy. It'd probably be easier just to use the image section. Okay, so I have the volume going on. I believe that's the only envelope I'm touching, and I've turned it down way a bit. This was set by ear. If I just turn it up a little bit, it greatly impacts the way my sound is, especially if I change the duration. If I like double it, that's like way too long. Like that won't fly. So I had to be short. And let's see here. I don't believe I did anything else. I don't see any knobs that... Oh, I turned the sub on. So I don't feel like that makes a huge difference right now during patch creation. Now I am compressing it, and this is important. So if I turn it off, it just does not have the same thing. I have it on warming. So it's a subtle thing, but I can hear it. I think it makes a big difference, personally. It's a subtle thing that makes a big difference. So, yeah, because subtle things, just a bunch of subtle things put together. And when you're done, you get that. And you got to be creative with your writing, and that reverb really builds up over time. Now, I'm not going to make one of these because it's very similar sort of concepts from the big chords. So I just wanted to walk you through this particular patch. Now, the lower spectrum of this patch has a lot of potential as well. I tried to sort of go through a wider range, and I tried to be a little clever with the melody writing. It's, it's whatever. It's big room. I like their melodies a lot. This is some of my favorite jazz right here. So, okay. Now let's go to this other dude. And this other dude sounds like this. If I turn him on. I love that so much, man. Okay, so here's what we got going for us. I'm still not done with this patch. Like I could go much further and sort of nail the timbre I'm looking for, but it's really close at this point. Super close. It's probably just my EQ. It's just gonna be EQ moves and then some additional compression afterwards. And another thing, because this is almost exactly where I want it, the other thing would be mixing it with the drums and stuff, making it really pop out and shine. And external multi-band compression, possibly. So, okay, which is basically what this is doing, but I've already used this, so I need another one. This one needs multiple stages of compression, and maybe EQ. And I could probably separate the filter stages out. Anyways, let's talk about how I made this sound inside Harmor. So, I knew I wanted something that was sort of nasally and thin, and nasally and thin means that you've got nasally, not very many harmonics. So I've got a bandpass on with the width at its average. Change the width, and you will change the sound. And I went for this spectrum right here, where it's got sort of this. It's got a selection of. You know what would be a good idea? I'll tell you in a second. I went with this middle section right here where it's barely got the fundamental in it, so I still get the tone, but this sort of gets emphasized. And now what would be a cool idea? Let's see. Turn it on well, turn the resonance up. Turn some resonance on there. Gives it a little bit of extra edge to it. As we go up, we leave the spectrum, and so our stuff will slowly change into, well, right now it's changing into a square wave. Eventually it'll get to a point where it's just a sine wave. But it's being distorted. No, I thought it was a square wave. It was a sine wave. It's just being distorted. So it's being pushed to its min and max, adding harmonics. So it counterintuitively becomes a square wave. Despite the fact, because it's distorted. I guess it's intuitive, just, when you think about it, you're like, wait a second, should be coming a sine wave. Anyways, I digress. So we got EQ. I further band limited it. This gives me extensive control over the tone. So I could still nail the tone just the way I want. I could probably end up boosting that, or I could just mix it like I should. Okay, so that's that. Now, I did not mess with any of the envelopes. Of course, the global EQ envelope is active because of that. I believe that's pretty close to it. That was the sound. It's really that simple. And then I distorted the living crap out of it. I turned the filter, I believe, up a little bit. One of these I did. One of these, I turned the filter up. This one. On the first patch, by the way, I turned the filter all the way off. So, because I needed that upper end. Okay, so on this one, I didn't touch it. The compression. Compression is going crazy. I took out the low end because I don't want that. It's not the lead sound I'm looking for. And I got the mids and the highs, and they are being compressed quite heavily because those are the sounds I am looking for. That is, I believe, just about it. It's a really simple patch, but it's like, man, one of my favorite sounds. And it's as simple as just nailing that resonance, shaping the spectrum in a particular area. And of course, it started off as a saw wave. If I started off as a square wave, that distortion plays a huge role too. So not a huge difference. So let's come over. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And you end up with this after you do your creative melody writing. I guess I'll walk through a little bit of melody writing because it sort of goes hand in hand with this kind of sound design. Gosh dang it, I didn't want that. I wanted this. This is a nightmare. There we go. So together you wind up with this. Okay, so let's talk about how I wrote this melody. So first off, these sorts of things feed on triplets. Like, they just eat them for breakfast. They also feed off these kind of blurs. I've heard, there's this song, I believe it's called Pyramid. I don't remember what the song is, but it's got a really nasally thing just like this. It's a little bit higher, maybe has a layer in there. I suspect layering. maybe not. And it's got a lot of reverb, but it's got this really like sort of all Big Room has crazy like melody type sounds. Like they're just really good at writing catchy sort of jumpy melodies. And so let's just play the pattern. So I start off with a pitch bend because I'm like, I need a pitch bend of some kind. And then down here, you need gaps. So the length of notes in Big Room, if you're messing with stuff that's like you hold it and you let go, it's a gate envelope. So the second I let go of that note will state the style of the music I'm in. So I want to be sensitive to how long each one of my notes is, rather cautiously. So this is the type of thing where I'll go through with Alt and be adjusting things off the grid. Now then they live on triplets. So you go to 1/3 step and you just start messing around. So this is like sort of rhythm theory. This isn't something that I'm going to really teach you right now, but I went with triplet, and then now these things just have very slight variations on the end. It just happened to be in the triplet grid, and I like the way the gap sounded, but these are eighth notes. And then over here we got our little double hit. So do. So 1 and 2, triple, yeah, triple, and then a rest. So no notes. Do, quarter note rest, and then we have 2 more eighth notes. So it's those sprinkled in triplets, those tuplets. So it's borrowed time. So what it is we're going against 1, 2, 3, but then when we hear do, we get syncopation just for a second. We get this syncopation thing, and it just really jives when we jump back and forth. And so it's a really great thing. Oh yeah, and up here, just kidding, not a quarter note rest. I have this thing. This is just an experiment, because it did feel a little bit empty there. So I forgot this was up here. Yeah, it's just a pitch bend. Bow, bow. This is something I could probably take it down an octave. Like, it'd sound fine. I wonder what it would sound like really low. Whoa. I wonder, there's a point where you start hearing, like, sort of a gurgle. Yeah, nope. Let's see this one. There, and now this one I might clone onto a separate Harmor, process it differently, and make it really stand out. Like, make it a big deal. Something that, like, just specifically for this part. So, okay, now let's talk about the other one. Because the other one is written differently. This one's got a 1 and 2 in 1 and 2 in feel at the beginning, so it's like dun 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 dun, or those are the completely wrong notes, but do. So 1 and 2 in, and then dun da da. So here I jump into the triplet grid again, and I do one of those triples for a second there, and then I go back to straight time. Then I do it again. And I stay in that time. So it's only right there. There's sort of just sparkly moments. This is one of the secrets to making Big Room, is just getting those sparkly moments in there. Well, of course, there's a gap. Got to have the gap. The rests are just as important as the rhythms. So you can't have the rhythms without the gap. So you'll notice there's a space here. If there's no space here, it will not sound quite as clean. If I put a space back, I just get a cleaner da, like a cleaner da 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 da. And then these spaces, of course, are essential. If I make them long, they just blur. There's still space between them, so it still kind of works, but that's really up to stylistically what you want to do as well. So if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.